All right, so I got called out to this walk-in freezer not holding temp. I get here, fan motors aren't running, jump on top of the box, condensing unit's not running. I gauge up to it and my pressures are showing that I'm pumped down. So I come back downstairs and I test my solenoid coil. No voltage there. All right, so I jump back over here, find my thermostat, and I check voltage across my poles. I'm reading 240 volts across my thermostat. That means that it's not calling for cooling. You can see here, hard to tell, but it was set to 0. So what I did is grab that knob and turn it all the way down to -20, and my freezer came on. Pressures looked fine, it ran for about 5 minutes, and then it pumped back down. So we have a bad thermostat. Talked to the customer, told them we have 2 options. We can go back in with this crappy mechanical, or we can go in with the digital KE2. They gave on-site approval for the KE2, so let's head back out to the van and get it pre-wired. Here's our KE2, part number 20611. This is the one with the 45-inch temp sensor. I have another one with a 10-foot temp sensor, but we don't need that in this application. So let's get this opened up and we'll get it pre-wired with some mini split comm wire. So we've opened up our KE2 box. We have our 10-inch sensor, mounting hardware, this watertight connector will go up here for our temp sensor, and they unfortunately don't provide one for the high voltage, but we'll just use the stuff that we pick up from United. And of course it comes with a cover, so you can cover up your high voltage, nobody gets hurt. So here's our wiring diagram. This one works with 115 or 230 volt for dummy proof, so we know we have 230 volt. We'll go ahead and set that. And we're going to wire it in just like this. The beauty of this mini split comm wire is that we have 4 wires in there. We don't have to put a jumper wire in here. What we're gonna do is wire all 4 wires in there, and we're gonna remember what color we used on what, and then we'll go wire it into our evaporator. All right, we got everything wired in. Black, red, those are gonna be our 2 hots. Our normally open is gonna be white, and our comm is gonna be green. So just like we have there, black, red, white, and then you see this little jumper wire here? Basically all we're doing is gonna take this green and black right here, and in the evaporator, we're gonna tie them together. All right guys, we got our KE2 mounted. We got our temperature sensor routed up behind the evaporator because we wanted our return airstream. And we used one of these nice little zip ties from Home Depot that has a little mounting hole right here. So we didn't have to really mess with anything. We loosened this screw here, installed the zip tie, and now this right here won't go anywhere. We're gonna reinforce it with a couple more zip ties just to be safe. But, all right, so our old electrical was going out through this hole here. And of course the mini split wire was too thick, so thank goodness for step bits, we created a new hole safely, making sure, we don't mess with any of the copper lines. But we routed our wire as neat as possible up to here. Now, we could have mounted it right here where they had the other thermostat, but we always want to do better. We mounted it on the wall where it's not going to get damaged, nothing's going to happen to it. And here's our wiring. So, if we look at our evaporator schematic, it's kind of hard to tell because it's a little older, but basically we have our one leg of 208 coming in on in, and our other leg of 208 coming in on 4. X is our defrost terminator. H2 is one side of our heaters. H2 is one side of our heater. H3 is the other side. And then we have terminal block number 3 right here supplying voltage. So H2 right here is just for the heater limit switch. But we'll go over that eventually. All right, back on the KE2. So we know 4 and N are main hots coming in. So if you look up here, there's N. So we had this wire right here that was coming off the old thermostat that was supplying voltage in, and then it was supplying voltage out to the solenoid coil. So what we did was just tie into there to our black and our green. Remember, instead of running this jumper inside the KE2, we ran a wire out with that mini split comm wire. So we're just tying in black and green. So find our black and green right here. And what I could have done, because this terminal block up here is full, what I could have done is installed one of these on there, so I could use the quick connectors on here, but I feel like that's just a accident waiting to happen. So what I did was make sure this connector here was good and tight, tightened it up, and then I used a crimp clamp right here. So what we want to do to make sure we don't have issues is add some silicone grease in there. Just going to make sure we don't get any moisture in there that will disrupt our connection. Of course, we want to make sure every wire in there is good and tight, nothing slips out. And then we have 4. So wire number 4, we already know, is our black wire. That completes our 208 feeding the KE2. All this is doing is powering the display and everything inside the KE2, of course. So our red wire is what we need to connect here. So red wire just went straight to 4. Connected right there. And of course we add some silicone grease right there, just make sure we don't have any issues. All right, so our white wire, that is our normally open contact. So it's normally open, so when it's de-energized, it's not supplying power out to our solenoid. Now when this KE2 calls for cooling, it's going to energize that normally open contact, it's going to close, allow voltage through on the white wire. Our white wire is tied into the one of our wires feeding our liquid line solenoid, which is this cable here. Cable runs all the way to the back, right through there, runs all the way through your evaporator. It's nice and tidy up here so the fans don't bother it, and it runs into our liquid line solenoid. The other side of this one is a little interesting. It's wired into this yellow wire, which is going back up to the condenser, and they're tying it to 4 on the terminal block upstairs. A little different, same concept. So we will get all this buttoned up, get power on, and get that KE2 programmed. All right, KE2 has some wonderful instructions on programming their controllers. These are fairly easy to program. So you can see we got power on now. We got our fans running. We're not calling for cooling yet, just the coil was cold enough for it to call. So we'll press and hold enter. Takes us to set point. It automatically comes preset for a cooler. So we're gonna go ahead and dial this down to the freezer. Freezer safe temps, -10 to 0. Set it for -10. Press and hold enter. Alright, make sure it took it. It took it. Oh, it's calling for cooling. Alright. Set our differential. It's set for 2 right now. This means that when my box gets to -8, it's going to cut back on. We'll set that to 5. When we hit -5, we cut back on. That way we're not short cycling. Compressor starts per hour. This is going to, it comes preset to 6. It only lets the compressor cut on 6 times per hour, and then it cycles it off. Leave it off. Defrost per day. If this was a cooler, we would adjust this set point. But with it being a freezer, we're going to let the time clock keep doing its thing, so that way the heater's energized. All this does is a hair over defrost. Defrost time, of course, we can leave that parameter alone. We're not adjusting the defrost time because we're not using defrost per day. High alarm offset. This means that if my box goes 5 degrees over, it's going to go into alarm. 5 degrees over my differential, sorry. So if it hits 0 degrees, it's going to go off. So we'll set that to 1. Low alarm offset. So if I go 3 degrees below my set point, it's going to go into alarm. We'll leave that at 3 because we don't want to go anywhere lower than -10, really. TAD. Huh, all right, I'm having a brain fart. Let's find out. TAD. Temp alarm delay. That's how long it takes before it goes into alarm. We'll leave it at 90 minutes. So it'll go 90 minutes and then it'll go into alarm if it ever reaches high or low temp. The address, we're not going to mess with that. The units, we're in America, so Fahrenheit, of course. We were Europe or anywhere else in the world, Celsius. And we're back at our set point. So now we can just leave the screen alone. It'll go back into displaying the temperature. And we'll just check operations on this bad boy now. We have our field speed psychrometers on our supply and return. And we have our we have our pressure probes up top on the box, reading our pressure. So This is as long as the boxes ran without pumping down, because the other thermostat was defective. We'll let the KE2 keep doing its thing, and we'll check back on it.